That's like Parrots' sign to hit the record.
So are the votes in?
How do you vote, Aaron? Where do you go to vote?
Cloud votes. I just posted cloud vote. Every vote counts.
Rabbi, I don't understand. You run all the voting sites. I don't understand.
So
You're
how do
asking
I
this
vote?
question
How do I vote?
with your feet.
It says only administrator could leave messages, no?
It says to send the message privately.
Oh, okay.
You could just tell us what you think, and we'll keep it quiet.
Yeah, okay. For me personally, it's Purim night, the night one.
Do we have a tally? Do we have a tally of what's where we're
I'm
at?
also pro Purim night, but I think we're being outvoted. I mean, I think we should
I'm
have Purim
also
night
pro
anyways.
Purim.
Is there
I'm
is there
So am I. I'm
polls
also
we can
pro
follow?
Yaakov.
You have a graph? You have a graph?
Yaakov, the votes are coming back to Yaakov. Don't worry. So far,
I'm
we're
also
I want to
invited
recount.
Purim night.
I want to recount. There's no way 81 million people voted.
And does it
Lando, I
count
can-
more for the people who actually do the daf? or people who never come
I'm
on?
gonna start taking my own attendance.
People who never
and
come on get
posting
the
it
same vote?
every week. Because
Don't
you guys
worry.
can't come once.
I'm not going to say who, but I got a message from somebody. It says his vote is that no matter when it is, if he could be called to pick up the leftovers, he's in.
I thought you were gonna say whatever Lando says the opposite.
Right.
Anyways, all right. Whatever it is. I think Parrot's right. Even if we don't do it Purim night, we should still do an episode daf Purim night.
Yeah, I think we should do a lot. We should do a live daf.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Either way. Don't you go collecting, Rabbi? Don't you go collecting?
Well, I collect more in the morning than I do by the night.
Ah, I hear you. Okay, so let's go. We could really theoretically knock this daf off in 10 minutes, but that would not
You can
be
finish
good.
the Masechta today.
One second. What would be wrong with doing such a thing?
We lose out on a lot of good hacks in tonight's stuff. That would be.
We could talk about the mikvah and farakawaits, yeah.
We could. That's more tomorrow than today, but we could.
The Kayla mikvah we could talk about.
Yeah. There's a lot here in this little daf. Okay, so let's go. So we're up to the Gemara, right? So again, the Mishnah yesterday said 11, well, it's 10 or 11. We'll see on number base or the next stop. 10 or 11 things where the Chachamim were more machmer on Tahara by kodesh, by kodshim, than they were by truma. And they're all derabbanans.
Are you saying
No.
10 or 11 because the Gemara changes it, or because you weren't sure?
Machlokes, if it's 10 or
Machlokes.
11.
Oh. No, I see
Machlokes.
article counted as 11 in the Mishnah.
Yeah, but it
Okay,
says in the
great,
book,
okay,
it says 1 and
Very
5 might
good.
be the same.
Very
Right.
good.
Okay.
So why don't you go to Art Scrolls? Why don't you go to them on Purim night, Art Scroll?
I was gonna say Art Scroll's very good at counting. They can count all that money. I guess that should be struck from the record, but okay.
It's a foundation. It's okay. It's a foundation.
That's right. Don't start up with them counting. Anyways, okay. So the Gemara is gonna go through all the cases or most of the cases. So the first case in the Mishnah was that you're not allowed to tovel kalim one kli inside of another kli for hektish, but truma you could. Meaning, if you're toveling in order to be for something for truma, then you could tovel one kli inside another kli. If you're not, if it's for kodesh, then you can't. So b'kodesh my time aloi. How come kodesh you can't? Right. So Amar Rav Ila mipnei shekvedosh shel kli chatzitza. It's because the weight of the kli is going to cause a chatzitza. Meaning, if you're going to tovel one kli and another kli, so then the weight of one is going to weigh down on top of the other. So therefore, for kodesh we're machmer, and for truma we're not. Now that we're going to see in tomorrow's daf. Why? I mean, if it's a chatzitza, right? This is your classic chatzitza, right? The water is not going to get in between the two utensils, right? So therefore, you're not allowed to do that for kodesh, but for truma you are allowed to do it. So we're going to see that's tomorrow why there should be a difference. But there's a few issues stem with, is that really a chatzitza? Right? I mean, when you go into the mikveh, aren't your feet on the floor when you're toveling?
Well, there's Mayim Kaidman. You don't have Mayim Kaidman.
Well, that's the answer. Well, first of all, why don't you have, first of all, it depends how you tovel. So
Right.
what's that? But why is it not, when your feet are on the floor of the mikveh, why is that not a chatzitza? Right? So the answer is, like Gershon said, because Mayim Kaidman. The Mayim went on your feet first, so then the water is considered trapped in between the feet and the floor of the mikveh, and then the water is all connected, sort of like we learned a couple days ago, that the water on the body of the person, even though his leg is only his leg is in the mikveh, it's all connected, so therefore the water is connected. That is very important point, because people, not every mikveh is so smart like ours that has a basket for the kelim mikveh, right? So I guess the Kolsei one, I think, does not. They have some form of basket. I don't know. But anyways, Me'ikar Adin, you're allowed to hold the kli. You're allowed to hold the kli in the mikveh. You just have to make your hands wet. It's a machlokes whether you make your hands wet with water first, or you need to make your hands wet with mikveh water. But if you want to hold on to a kli, or you tell everything in the ocean, like we had a couple days ago, and you want to hold on to the kli, so you're allowed to. You just got to make sure your hands are wet first. You shouldn't. And Dave Peiskim say you shouldn't hold on to it tight. You shouldn't hold on to it tight, but try and hold on to it a little loose. But you are 100% allowed to hold on to it, and you don't have to. Like some people put it in and then they shift it to the other hand, so that they're making all sorts of kunsten, right? Because they want to make sure you don't have to. You don't have to.
So you can hold your bathing suit if you tovel in the ocean, because
Yeah,
wet.
100%. Yes, yeah. And I mean, it's better to do it loosely, but
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. Sometimes you have a woman who's scared of going under the water in the mikveh. So, but if they hold on to the railing, so then they're not scared. So they could hold on to the railing. They just have to make their hand wet first, and they shouldn't hold on tight, but they should hold on whatever. So the question is here. So what's going on?
Okay. So.
The what?
And that was the case I said this morning. We were told. So I said the first time a lady's taking her daughter for a kala.
Right.
So she's scared. She's nervous. So her mother holds her in the mikveh.
Yeah.
So that would be
That would be that's mut, but she has to make sure she makes her hands wet first.
Yeah.
Right. So when we're saying toveling kli and another kli, as what Gershon was saying, it depends how it goes. Meaning, if you put the bottom kli into the mikveh first, and then you drop in the top kli on top of it, then that's fine. Right. This is talking about where you have the two kelim, one on top of the other, stacked up, and then you put it into the mikveh. Right. There you don't have the water. Going first. Okay, so that's one practical thing from Hilchos Mikvahs. So then they want to ask. So basically, the issue is chatzitza. Well, we already have another case of chatzitza in the Mishnah a few lines later. But with the Sefer Mishum chatzitza, Reisha la Mishum chatzitza. In the Sefer, there's a case of chatzitza already. So that means the Reisha is not chatzitza. The Gatani Sefer, v'loy k'midas hektish, midas hatruma. The midah of hektish is different than midah of truma. Shebe kodesh matir. By kodesh, let's say, so back then they toveled clothing. So let's say you had knots in your clothing. So by making a knot, are we afraid that the water is not going to penetrate the knot? Yeah? We'll get back to this in a minute, what it's negeya b'zman hazeh. It's a negeya, a couple of things. But it says, shebe kodesh matir, so by hektish you have to untie the knot, then you have to mangiv, then you have to dry it, umatfil, and then tovel it again, ba'achakach kosher, and then you go and tie it again. Ubetruma kosher ba'achakach madam. Ubetruma you can tie it and then you can tovel. So whatever it is, the Gemara's kasha is not about the specifics, but the Gemara's kasha is, this is case number 6, I think, or 7 in the Mishnah, right? So that's talking about chatzitza. So now you're saying that this case number 1 in the Mishnah and case number 6 are chatzitza? It doesn't make sense. How many cases of chatzitza do you need? Right? So before we go weiter and say why we need 2 cases of chatzitza, so this is negeya to hair in the mikveh that's knotted. So me'ikar adin, when the women have to comb their hair for the mikveh or a ger or whatever, right? They're making sure that really what the issue is that one hair can't have a knot. if the hair, you know how you could take one hair ties itself up, but two hairs, one to each other, is a debate whether that's a chatzitza, and three is for sure not a chatzitza, because if you take three hairs, so the Gemara says, there's a Gemara, it's definitely in Shulchan Aruch, that three hairs, meaning if you take three ropes and you tie them together, it's never going to get so tight. It's never going to get so tight. So that's not going to be a chatzitza, right? The main reason why you're combing the hair is to make sure that there's no single knots with one hair.
And that's possible to do on a woman's hair, to make sure every single hair, like every single hair has no knots?
That you got to do what you got to. There's a reason why the women get stressed out when they go to mikvah. It's a stressful experience. Yeah, or you shave your head like the Chassidim. They just did away with the whole issue. Chassidim are very practical. Just shave the head, finish, next, right? So, but that's the nerves. It's not about the knots in multiple hairs. It's really the knots in one hair. Yeah. Now, why do you have to dry it for? As we're saying here, you have to untie it for kodesh. You have to untie the knot and then dry it, and then put it in the mikveh again. So the reason is because if it's going to be wet, so the wet seems to expand it. So if it expands it, it's going to end up being too tight, and then therefore it's not going to be good. So that's why you have to dry it. Either way, so that's
This
that
is like
practical thing. What
This
do
is
you say?
like the halacha of not bending over too far because the folds in the skin.
Yeah, I guess.
That kind of tight, that's what you mean?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm saying this is not, so that's a little different thing, but yeah, same type thing. Either way, so the Gemara is asking, why do you need two cases of chatzitza in the Mishnah? So the Gemara answers, Reisha, right, we're right halfway down the daf now. Yeah, Reisha v'seifa, mishum chatzitza. The Reisha and the Sefer are both talking about chatzitza. But Tzrichon, you need two cases of chatzitza. Why? Diashmin Reisha. If it said the case of the Reisha, which is one kli on top of another kli that you can't do it. Havamina hainu taima the kodesh loy. The reason why you can't do it for kodesh is from kveda shel kli, because of the weight of the kli. The ika that you have. I'm sorry, mishum the kveda shel kli. The ika that you have the weight of the kli, so it's a chatzitza. Aval seifa, but the seifa. The leka kveda shakli, there's no heavy kalim here. Aimen l'kodesh namiloi. So you would say that even for kodesh, aimen l'kodesh namiloi have a chatzitza. So you would say that for kodesh, it's also not a chatzitza, because it's only when you have the weight of one utensil on top of another utensil. V'yashmin on seifa. I never would have just said the case of chatzitza in the seifa. Havamina hainu time of the l'kodesh loy. I would say the reason why kodesh not mishum. The kitra b'maya aduke mahada, because when you take a knot in water, it makes it, like we just said, it makes it tighter. So since it makes it tighter, the water is not going to get inside the knots. Avaresha demaya kfuye makfile lamana. Naturally, water makes the utensil float, right? So since if you're going to tovel one kli inside of another kli, then it's going to naturally make it float. So lo yahavi chatzitza, then it will not be a chatzitza. So tzricha, so therefore we need both cases. Fine. So that's the first shot, that the first case in the Mishnah is a chatzitza issue. So Rav Ila l'tamei, and Rav Ila goes according to his reason. The Amar Rav Ila, Amar Rav Chanina bar Papa, Eser Mai l'shanukan. The Mishnah says 10. See, Naftali 10. He says the Mishnah has 10 cases. Chomerish Rishayna is the first 5 is bein l'kodesh, bein l'chulin shenasu al taras l'kodesh, is for kodesh. And for somebody who's eating chulin with the kedusha, with the tahira of hektish, right? Which we said yesterday, that's like somebody keeping all the COVID restrictions, just a beat to keep it, even if he doesn't have any risk. That's essentially what this guy's doing. So for the first 5 listed in the Mishnah, it's going to apply to that too. Achraynos, the kodesh, but the last 5 in the Mishnah only applies to kodesh, but it will not apply for chulin shenasol taras kodesh. Meaning somebody who wants to eat chulin with this extra kedusha does not have to keep the second 5 chumras of the Mishnah. Why is this? My timer. So chamish kamaisa this ludrara the tumah b'daraisa. The first 5 have a drara. a drawer of Tumah Daraisa mean how do you touch drawer? A hint.
It says here a concern.
A concern. Oh yeah, okay. Drawer Tumah Daraisa. So it has a concern, or it has something to do with a Tumah of Daraisa. Meaning again, the Mishnah, these are all Tumah Darabanans, right? But the first 5 have theoretical scenarios where the Tumah could be, where that type of thing could be a Issa Daraisa. So then Gazabu Rabbanan, the Rabbanan made a Gezerah and said that Chulin Shanaso al Taras HaKodesh, right? Chulin that's eaten with Taras of the Kodesh is not a problem. Is whatever is included. It's not a problem, meaning it's the same as Kodesh. So then Bein the Kodesh, Bein the Chul Shanaso al Taras HaKodesh, it's going to apply to both. Basraisa, but the last 5 cases, the less Ludrar, the Tumah Deraisa, they don't even have a, concern of Tumah Deraisa. Gazu Rabbanan LeKodesh, and then the Rabbanan made a Gezerah for Kodesh, the Chulin Shanas al Taras HaKodesh, or for Chulin al Shanas al Taras HaKodesh, Loi Gazu Rabbanan, the Rabbanan did not make a Gezerah. Fine. So that's the first teretz. Second teretz is Rava Amar. We'll go a little bit into the next stop since tomorrow night is Thursday, and then it's Friday, so we'll try to do a little bit more. I hope that's okay. Rava Amar, with the Seifa, we could really stop here. We could really stop here.
If we get ahead a little bit, we'll get out of, as it stands, the Thomas Esther and Purim are Daf Tes and Daf Yud and Yivamis. Daf Yud Aleph is a little bit easier.
Okay, Daf Tes is not, it's not hard.
It's tiny, but the biggest Rashi in Shas.
Gershon, you want us to get ahead now for another Masechta?
Yeah,
Is that
we're
what
planning
you're
now
saying?
for
Yeah, so what's that? Let's go. Yavamis is hard. That's it.
Yeah.
There's no way to change it.
Yeah, but it's not
have
so
a look at
hard.
Daf Tes Amid Base. Have a look at the Rashi. That's Pashut.
I've always had trouble that Rashi. I've had trouble with many times.
It keeps me up at night, that Rashi. That I'm at base, right?
Yeah, you know which
One of the biggest Rashis in Shas.
There you go.
Pull out the notes from Yeshiva.
Yeah.
Maybe it's only
Yeshiva,
people
I don't-
in Howard that have trouble with that Rashi.
Gershon's gonna be on permanent mute for Yavamis.
I don't know if yeshivas get the Daf Tes, but anyway. Yeah. So okay. So let's fine. So Rava has a different shot. With the Seifa Havi Mishum chatzitza. If the Seifa is chatzitza, Reisha la Mishum chatzitza. The Reisha is not chatzitza. The Reisha Hainu Taima. And what's the reason for the Reisha? Gezerah now, no, again, the first shot was that the Reisha was that one kli is sitting on top of another kli and it makes a chatzitza. He's saying a whole different reason. So Gezerah shalayatul machten b'tzinaris b'kli she'ein b'piv k'sheferes hanoid. There's a lot of interesting words there. So it's a Gezerah that you're not going to tovel your machten and tzinaris. We had that a couple of days ago. It's the needles and what's the other one? Hooks. In a kli that its mouth does not have the width of shveferes hanoid, which is the opening of a flask, right? Meaning, if you're gonna take a cup right here. Well, we haven't had show and tell in a long time since Erevin or Sukkah, right?
Yeah.
So if you take a cup, right, and you're gonna this opening. So we're gonna see in a minute. Shveferes hanoid is the width of 2 fingers, and you put it in and you move it around. That's the amount. So if we would tovel this salt shaker in here, that's fine because this opening is much bigger. But they're afraid, so this salt shaker, look at that, it's Pasher who's sitting here. Right? This salt shaker, this opening here is not going to fit at least not my 2 fingers. My fingers are pretty fat though, so I don't know. Right? So here, if you're going to tovel something in this salt shaker, it's no good because we're afraid that not enough water, it's considered its own separate entity. It's not going to be considered connected to the mikveh. Right? So we're afraid that if we're going to allow somebody for hektish, if we're going to allow somebody to tovel one kli and another kli, he's going to end up toveling it in a very small kli, and it's going to be no good. We're worried about that for hektish, but we're not worried about that for truma.
Why is it good if a guy keeps pins on his head?
What do you mean? That was the last.
Yeah, so the pins never got into the water. They're on his head. We're saying
Right,
they're being tovel on his head.
Right, but the water is in that. There's water in his head.
It doesn't say if there's water in his head or not.
No, it has to be that there's water in his hair. It has to be, otherwise the whole thing doesn't work.
How much water is in his hair?
I don't know.
I mean, not. I
That's
mean,
how frizzy his hair is.
we have people. We have people in the daf who are almost bald. So how long does the water stay on their head? And we have guys who have big hair. So the water's.
I
Yeah,
said that
and-
last week. A bald guy's head dries up a lot quicker, a lot sooner.
Right,
I said
you're
that
right.
last
And
week.
So you have to know. You have to know what the gather is for each person. You have to know, but it has to be wet.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. No, but here we're afraid that if we're going to allow you to tovel utensils in one person's if we're going to allow you to tovel utensils inside another utensil, then you may end up coming to tovel it in something that's not good. Meaning in a utensil that's way too small. Kidetanan, we learned in a mishna. Eruv mikvahs, really Eliyahu Ikavik should be doing this here because he built the mikvah. Eruv mikvahs.
I'm here.
So you'll tell us. Eruv mikvahs kishveferes hanoid. Mixing mikvahs is like the shveferes hanoid, like the bottle, the top of a bottle, which is what? Ke'uvya, on to the next stuff. Ke'uvya, like the thickness. Ukechalala, b'shtei etzbos. It's like the whole of two fingers. Chayzros l'mekayman, meaning they have to go back to their place. Meaning it's not just two fingers. They have to be able to rotate inside the opening too, which means it's got to be slightly bigger than two fingers, which is what we do in order to connect the bar that has the rainwater with the mikvah. I don't know if anybody ever noticed when they go into the mikvah, right? So that mikvah water in the mikvah that we dunk in is regular water. It's not rainwater. What they do is they have an opening between that mikvah and the rainwater mikvah, which has got to be the minimum of this measurement, right? And then
we put in usually a 3-inch. They put in a 3-inch pipe.
3-inch should cover it. Yeah, that's what they use. That's the standard 3 inches.
Yeah, standard 3-inch.
Yeah, okay, so that's okay. So then what they do is they mix the two waters together. That's called hashaka, from the word kiss. They kiss the water together. That makes all the city water now into mikvah water, and now you have a kosher mikvah, right? So therefore, the same thing here, where if you're trying to tovel something in another kli, that opening of that kli has to have the same measurement. Otherwise, if that measurement is smaller, then that's not considered a connection to the mikvah, and therefore it will not. When you're toveling these little utensils inside another utensil, and the opening is not big enough, then it's considered detached from the mikvah, and you're not toveling utensils in a mikvah, right? So okay, so Savar law. There are 11 milas, not 10, like Art Scroll translates it in the Mishnah. Yeah, the 6 cases are for kodesh and chulin shenasal taras kodesh, and achraynos, the last 5 is lekodesh, only applies to kodesh, but not avaloi lechulin shenasal taras kodesh, but not for chulin shenasal taras kodesh. Right, so he has 11 because he learns that there's 2 separate dinim. See, Rav Avya held that there's only 10 cases because 2 of the cases were chatzitza issues. Here he's saying no, the first case is chatzitza issue, and the first case is not a chatzitza issue. The first case is an issue of the opening of the utensils, and the other case is chatzitza. Fine. So basically, we have 2 pshatim of what's wrong with putting one kli inside another kli for kodesh. The first pshat is chatzitza. The second pshat is because we're afraid, it's a gezerah that we're afraid you're going to end up taking small utensils and putting it into a utensil that's too small. Fine. So now what's the practical? That's very nice, but what's the practical difference between these 2 opinions? Right. So my ikabein de Rava le Rav Ila. So what's the difference between Rava and Rav Ila? Ikabeinayu sal, a basket, v'gargusni shamilin kelim v'tvilan, a basket or a strainer that you filled up kalim and you tovel them, which is what the farakah has that, right? You have a basket and you put in the utensils in the lamandam mishum chatzitza ikas. The lamandam when it says chatzitza, then you still have that problem. Why? Because the utensils sit on top of the basket. So that would be a chatzitza. And Lamanda Omar, Mishum Gezeira, Shemayatul Matan Tzinoiras, the Lamanda Omar that says that it's Gezeira because you might end up toveling these needles and these hooks, Bekli, Shein Bepiv Kishras Anoid, in a basket that doesn't have the opening of two fingers, Salvar Gagusni, Shein Bepiv Kishras Anoid Leka. So a basket and a strainer that don't have it's not anywhere close to that measurement, so therefore there's gonna be no gzeira, right? Because you're having such a large basket, so it's not going to be a problem, right? Yeah, let's just do a few more lines. Vaz the Rava and Rava goes according to his reasoning. Dama Rava Sal Bigargusni. If you have a basket and a strainer, Shemilon Kalim, Betvilon, and you filled it up with Kalim and you tie them to Hirin. But if you take a mikvah and you separate it with a basket and a gargusni, right? Why? And he says an interesting thing. I mean, again, so if you have this, like we said, the bar of the rainwater is separated from the regular mikvah with a basket or a strainer, meaning the water is going back and forth, right? But a basket or a strainer, then that is not going to work. It's not going to be a kosher mikvah. You have to actually have a tube that's okay. Let's say Elio saying 3 inches wide. You have to have a tube that's 3 inches wide in order to connect it, right? So why wouldn't a strainer work? Because all ground is porous. All ground has holes in it, right? And still you need memsa in one place, meaning you have the ground. Right, we know that you dig at some point you're going to get to water, right? So why don't you just say that if you tovel yourself in a puddle, as long as the body goes under the puddle, we'll say, well, through the ground there's water connecting everything, and we don't say that clearly. So it has to be a specific connection of water, which needs to be with an opening of at least 3 inches. So Memela, this doesn't have that. This thing does not have that opening. So therefore, it's not going to be a kosher mikvah. So again, so it comes out there's a kula and a chumrah for this. To tovel utensils in a basket is okay. There's no gezeira for that, but there may be a gezeira for chatzitza, right? But and to tovel in a utensil that has opening of less than 3 inches, that will not work. But if you're trying to connect two mikvahs to each other, so then the pipe will work and the basket will not work. So each one has a kula and a chumrah. Okay, we could stop here. Everybody should enjoy their 15-20 minute vacation. Yeah. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Can I call you?
Can you call me? I can't really tell you.
15 minutes.
I can't really tell you no.
Yeah, you can't get out of it tonight.
I thought you got an extra 15 minutes.
Get a credit.
I should.
Oh, Gershon should have a credit. He was quiet tonight.
Yeah, I tried.
You should make up for it. You should have him let you call you now.
That's why we have 15 minutes extra, not 10 minutes extra.
Gershon, you can fight back. You don't have to take it like that from everybody. You can push back on it.
It's all good. I'm happy with that. Listen, if the worst that people have to say about me is that I forced them to learn an extra 5 minutes. No.
Very good. You're not going to say good, Gershon. 1 second. Let's not get carried away with that now, you know?
Tiago, not during shear, but I'm happy doing a tour, a video tour, if the island wants to see practical.
You got to see if they're interested.
Of what? The mikvah?
No, Elio, you got to go through the bar Zvir, bar Shaka, the whole thing.
I just
got my bar with the hole in the plexiglass. I built 2 mikvahs also.
Okay, well, there you go.
Just
7 o'clock at night is not a good time to do that.
Right. I built 2 mikvahs with Itcha Trigger.
Okay.
There's a There's a video by Yisrael Reisman.
Oh yeah? On where?
Yeah, on mp3share.com. There's a video. It's been out for years. Going through a mikvah. But anyways,
All right.
yeah. Fine. Okay. So
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna.
Tziyag, if it's mamish
call
2
me.
minutes.
Call
I
me.
call you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Call me right now.
I gotta get my phone.
Good night,
Okay.
everybody.
Dag is on. Okay, bye.